So this is my prototype for the top half of Viper's Gauntlet from Valorant. And it's a prototype, so there's a lot of things hanging off right now that are not the final versions, like the straps. There's not the final versions of the straps. There's a lot of tape in there to hold things together. I'm just, at this stage, I'm so fearful of the permanence of glue. I like to take things apart and test other things, right? We're still in the prototype phase. So the whole purpose of this is it is supposed to be somewhat accurate to the motion in game. So it's supposed to open up, right? Like it does in game. And then you take one of her snake bites and you just slip it in, right? So now it's got that in there. And then it can be slid out. Now I'm not making it actually launch that. It's not the goal. And I'm not sure that would be a whole other engineering feat in itself that I don't really want to tackle. So yeah, like I said, I have the straps on here to, well, attach it to my arm because I don't have like some sort of sleeve or anything that this is attached to yet. Nor do I have the bottom section, which would sort of clamp on the underside of the arm. But I can go and show some shots of it just mounted and show the opening and closing while it's mounted as well. So here it is, mounted up, the prototype mounted up on my arm, so you can kind of see its sizing and everything like that. I do think it is a little big, but we will talk about that later. So the motion all starts from back here. Everything, you kind of lift it up from here and open up the scissor lift. And then the side plates kind of swing out. So they're in, right? And then they swing out like that to kind of open things up. Snakebite just fits straight up there. It doesn't slide out on its own yet. I will need to go and make some bit of a ramp and things like that because it does get caught on a lip back here, but regardless. Right, it comes in and out. And all of this motion, like I said, starts back here. There's a bit of a lock right up top here. There's a magnet that's holding the shuttle that this is attached to inside here. So this kind of needs to be flicked out and everything just kind of gets pressed down. Ooh, there we go. And then the side plates swing shut. Now I don't have the bottom half of the prototype, of course, so maybe the swinging action will have to happen before. So you know, maybe it interferes at this point. But we'll get there when we get there. Like I said, everything just happens from back here. So we open it, we got open, and closed. So this is a brief peek behind the curtain. This is an older version of my Blender file, but it'll do to kind of explain how I got my parts how I designed my parts before I 3D printed them. So I've got an approximation of my arm here. I actually went and traced my arm out on grid paper. Now, I am a 5'8" male, and my arm may not match dimensions of your arm, and so I kind of want to put a big asterisk here that I am designing all of this for myself primarily at this moment, before I decide to modify it for other people. And I want to also put another asterisk that I did not design a lot of the complex parts of this. This whole mesh here, most of the plates, meshing and everything like that, was designed by somebody. I found these models on CG Trader specifically underneath the username Gek564.
I reached out and asked them if I could use their files and modify their, more static cosplay props, because they make a lot of cosplay props, and they would, really a lot of good ones too. But I asked them, hey, can I modify your Viper gauntlet from a static, structure to something that moves and is complex? Um, and they said, go for it. They also have a link tree under the name Spearmaster. I'm gonna go and either have that link in bold in the middle of the screen, include it in the description, stuff like that. Like this guy has done a lot of the work, and I am, I'm not. I don't want to completely diminish what I've done. I've done all of the modeling on sort of the mechanical areas that interface with the Boolean plates and everything like that. However, they're the one that did most of the complex surface modeling, and I just purchased their models and started adding hinges and everything to them. Um, right, so all this hinge assembly that's booleaned into there, that was me, right? Because I'm using my own axles and everything like that, my own system. So yeah, this is just a little peek behind the curtain. This file's a little bit outdated, but like I said, it shows you how I'm making all of these things before I stick them on the 3D printer. So yeah, Blender is great. I'm glad I learned how to use it. Yeah, and then I'm just gonna go walk through the prototype that I have in person and kind of explain some of the design decisions, um, some of the more complex parts, and how everything kind of comes together.
So the core of the mechanism is back here in this scissor lift. So you have sliding hinge points on the bottom here, and the top is on the shuttle, is what I've referred to it as. That's what I call it in CAD. Uh, the shuttle, which houses the magnet, which helps hold everything up. Now everything is kind of held up already with friction, but the magnet helps lock things in place and hold all of this up, which is rather good. So the bottom sections are on rails. The top section, like I said, is on the shuttle, and the axles and everything are mounted such that things do not cross. The shuttles on the outside here are the furthest outside, and the shuttle on the top is furthest inside. And then the arms, are side by side, so they don't intersect. They don't get in the way of any of each other. Blah, blah. So once again, the lock here up top can be disengaged, and everything just kind of collapses down or goes up. Now, there's a couple of little things are going to be kind of tricky to show on camera, but the arms are not actually the same length. I actually made these ones that are currently attached to the shuttle 1 millimeter shorter than the other ones, and this kind of it's probably not very visible, but there is actually a bit of an angle like this, so that and that is designed to sort of counteract the sag of everything. There's a lot of weight out here, a lot of moments out here that kind of tips everything forward, and the shorter arms back here means that this all is tipped a little bit further back to kind of counteract that. There wasn't a lot of, I didn't do a lot of math to like figure out like sort of the distribution of weight out here versus what would be needed to shorten everything up. But I guess I could have done that if I wanted to really try hard. And yeah, a couple other features. You can see these are the slots, or the arms that the back plates slide into. So just kind of slide up into there, as you saw it before. And then everything, all the little axles and everything, those metal little axles that you're seeing there are wire brads. These are something I thrifted one day. I'm like, ooh, that would make for a good axle. And that is what I have done. They all kind of have this little, let's see if I can show it, mushroom head at the top there. Yeah. Anyway, they got this mushroom head on the top there that I use in each of the arms. I have a little divot for them to rest inside of and everything like that. So, yeah, that's what I've used as axles for everything. And I've gone and cut them with bolt cutters to the right lengths. Now, a couple of them are loose. And once again, the permanent solution would be glue. You can actually see these front ones. I never even bothered to trim off the spike because that's just embedded within it. Like it's embedded within the prop, so I don't need to worry too much about that spike, being in there. And yeah, so that's really just the breakdown of the core mechanism. It's just a scissor lift. Believe me, this took like a lot of engineering to get right. With a rise of 22.5 millimeters, and I think there's a couple other angles I set in there at 72 degrees or something like that. Some nice number like that. There's two sort of spikes along the side here, which the Snakebite it doesn't necessarily engage with it, but it's a close enough fit that there's not a lot of wiggle, and then the top of it just fits right in there. And yeah, like I said, there is a bit of wobble, and it's especially bad up front. There's a couple of little things I did with the arms back here to kind of so that they sort of dig into the base and the top here, and try to prevent some wiggle motion, and it did a decent job, but there still is a whole lot of wobble out here, and that's just going to be inherent to a design like this. When you have hinges and you have axles that are loose enough for things to move, there is inevitably going to be some wobble and wiggle that clearance sort of affords. So these front parts are one area where I've left myself room to fiddle with. When everything opens up, these front plates have about 10 degrees of tiltage, and they kind of tilt away, just guided by the weight of everything out here. These front side plates, I guess, these front plates, which are on hinges of their own. Now, all of this motion is, I'm not sure, it's probably the least accurate to the in-game model, but it allows me to kind of fiddle around with things underneath. I can go and provide some sort of support and guidance, so maybe they only come out this far or something like that, depending on how I feel, or with an engagement with the lower half of everything. So all of that is fairly open to playing around with. Now, this is actually a place where I have used glue. There are two holes, it's kind of hard to see with the lighting, right, buried in there and in there, where the brad axles are kind of buried deep down in there and glued into the length of the longer length of this top section here. So there is some glue. I don't know, I keep talking about how scary this stuff is, but there is some glue in there to hold these parts together for playing around with all of this. And like I said, there's a lot of unknowns that I have at this moment for how I want the motion of these front sections to fully be. Outside of the base, the core, there are two more aesthetic pieces, right? This is the sort of the wrist guard, and those are the slots that it attaches to in the base. Now, the reason why there's so much tape in previous views of this is because right now these do not engage very tightly. You know, it's a loose, wobbly fit, which is good for, you know, it shows like, you know, you have the potential for engagement. But once again, I am scared of the permanence of glue at this stage. So, yeah, so this is one of the sort of more aesthetic, non-functional pieces at this moment. I do have some sort of studs on the side there to attach future pieces to if I choose to do so. That's one, and then there's another back here. Now this somewhat functions because it closes up the bottom slots there, kind of engages, right? So you can see how those fit into each other. So it does kind of close those up and fill out the back of here, but it doesn't really have any functional use. They're more, these two pieces are at this current time more aesthetic than functional. But you know, part of making the prop is for aesthetics, so they're important in their own right. So the final part of this that I designed were the side plates here. And I went through a number of different ideas on how I wanted to do them. One other idea that I had was having them sort of mounted further up on the arm. So I've got some other, once again, magnets. I'm addicted to magnets. Mechanism to kind of keep it down and then up. So it was, you know, supposed to be deployed, undeployed. I did a lot of math in 3 dimensions to go and figure out how to get this thing to the right height and everything that I wanted, and it just did not come out the way I wanted. Plus the mechanism was, you know, as it being pressed so far forward up here, it's completely separate from the motion of everything else. At least this way with the sliding out side plates. You know, it's still attached from the back plates back here. So once this goes up, these move as well, right? It's all part of the same system, as opposed to something a little bit more disjointed. I had a couple different ideas on how I wanted to do that sliding motion. So previously I had, you know, some static arms stuck onto the back plates. That's what I refer to these as. But the side plates did not like this as much, right? So this kind of just, because of the weights of everything, ridges and stuff like this can get stuck. And it wasn't really allowing deployment as easily as I would have liked, which is how I moved on to, just take off this entire assembly here. This is how I moved on to a 3 sort of parallel arm sliding mechanism. Now, it's not the cleanest thing in the world, cleanest looking thing in the world, right? You can see it here. And when you look at the in-game model, you definitely, right, there's more motion between sort of this point and this point than in real life with me fiddling around with this. But there needs to be some, there are some creative liberties taken with the engineering of the in-game model, of course, that I can't just rely on. So I think this is as close as I can get. I could potentially make the arms like longer, the 3 arms in there longer, so that there's more motion, that the side plates move further down like they do in the in-game model. But then you start cutting away a lot more material out here, and I don't like that. You kind of have to have this balance right here between the length of the arm, because if the arms are longer up here, you know, then the angle that they sort of cover also grows and grows and grows as you go further down. So I'm not sure if that all makes sense, but this is sort of as much motion as I can sort of feel comfortable with having before you start cutting away too much material out of the side plates or the back plates. One other thing to mention, I do have some slots here on the prototype. I was going to do what I did with my Viper orb and have ballast back here to kind of hold things, kind of tip things back. Because there is a little bit of tiltage forward, tiltage side to side that just comes with having things on arms and hinges. But I feel like I will be ditching these slots and nickels because there's enough weight back here, and this does not. These do not like provide a significant amount to counterbalance anything else. So this is where everything stands. I'm not going to retape this all up and everything like that. But my main concern at this time, or one of the main concerns I have at this time is this thing feels bulky. And I'm not sure. I need to go and test out the bottom half of everything, because that's all going to be one piece, just based on the files that I've modeled everything on top of. That's all going to be one large piece, and if that is also feeling bulky, then maybe I'll start, you know, addressing that. The only dimension I can really shrink it down in is this direction, though, kind of like lengthways around down my arm. I really don't think I can make it any tighter, just based on all the hinges and the scissor lift arms back here, any the magnet holders on the sides. All of that feels like it kind of needs to stay at the size it's at, and I don't think I can make things much tighter before they start interfering with, you know, the approximation of my arm that I've got in the 3D model, 3D designer. So I'm going to put all of this on hold for the time being. I like where things are at. There's a couple of things I'd like to tweak, but for the most part, I think it's in very good shape. And I'm going to go move on to the bottom half with the Viper wall segments, the toxic screen segments. I want to make those light up. I want to make them, you know, detachable, removable. You know, I want to add some functionality to that as well. You know, I don't want to just be a Snakebite launcher. I want this to be like the ultimate sort of, you know, cosplay prop, the ultimate sort of, you know, Viper gauntlet, basically. And for that, I need to get the toxic screen segments on the underside. I need to get those perfect. So perfect to my, you know, sort of level of perfection. So yeah, that's sort of just an overview of the engineering and everything that went into this, different aspects of design that I decided upon. And yeah, this project, I started this way back in August, and it has taken me a while to get just to this. Hopefully, I think the underside will be quicker. It'll be quicker to design, but longer to print, simply because it's a much larger section. But yeah, this is where I'm at, and I'm happy with the prototype as it stands right now, and it's on to the next one.